This is the story of Wes Mathewson, a passionate conservationist whose deep love for animals led to a heartbreaking end. West was known for his dedication to preserving wildlife and his unique bond with two rare white lionesses he had raised from cubs. One fateful day, during what seemed like a routine walk with his beloved lions, an unforeseen and tragic event occurred, forever altering the lives of those who knew him. Wes Mathewson was a well-known South African conservationist and safari lodge owner with a deep passion for wildlife, particularly big cats. He was born and raised in South Africa, where his fascination with wildlife began during his childhood. Growing up in a country renowned for its rich biodiversity, he was surrounded by nature and wild animals, which sparked his interest in conservation from a young age. His love for animals was further influenced by the environment in which he was raised, often exploring the bush and learning about the various species that inhabited it. In 2015, Wes made a decision that would change his life forever. He rescued two one-week-old lion cubs from a nearby farm that bred lions for the purpose of trophy hunting. The farm would keep the lions until they were big enough and old enough to be released into the bush to be hunted. Wes found the sport cruel and could not bear the thought of these two female cubs being raised only to be slaughtered. The cubs were rare white lionesses, and Wes saw not only an opportunity to save them, but also a potential business venture. He purchased the cubs and brought them to his lion treetop lodge in Hoedspruit, located just outside the infamous Kruger National Park in South Africa's Limpopo province. Wes' devotion to the cubs, whom he named Demi and Tanner, was strong as his commitment to his own children. He bottle-fed them day and night until they were ready to transition to a diet primarily consisting of meat. He established a daily routine that included playing with the cubs and taking them on walks 2 or 3 times a day. Over time, Wes became more than just their caretaker. He became their father figure, and the lionesses became like family to him. As the cubs grew, Wes began introducing them to his guests at the lodge. The young lionesses quickly became a major attraction, drawing visitors eager to interact with them. Wes shared numerous photos on his website, showcasing guests playing with the lions and enjoying the unique experience of walking side by side with these majestic creatures. However, as time passed, Demi and Tanner grew larger and more powerful. In 2017, when the lionesses were 2 years old, they managed to escape from Wes's property. On the other side of the fence, they saw Kulu Justice and his colleague, who were out in the veld collecting wood. One of the lionesses ran towards Justice, jumped on him, and pinned him to the ground, while the other lioness stood by and watched. Justice screamed for help, and his friend quickly threw stones at the lion to scare her off. She eventually ran away, and Justice's friend helped him up and took him to a phone box to call for an ambulance. Justice was badly injured, with cuts all over his legs, torso, stomach, and chest. The two men made it to the hospital, but sadly, Justice, who had diabetes, died a few days later. Doctors couldn't say for sure if his death was caused by the lion attack or his existing health condition. After the tragic incident, Wes explained that he believed the lioness only wanted to play, and that if she meant to kill Justice, he would have been dead within 5 seconds. Whether or not that was true, it showed just how powerful Demi and Tanner were. Despite being tamed, they were still wild animals. Wes was likely correct. A single bite to the neck could have killed Justice instantly. This incident was a serious reminder of the dangers of keeping such powerful animals. Wes had a huge responsibility to keep the public safe, but it was impossible to completely tame a lion. They were too strong to be fully controlled, and Wes wanted them to have the freedom to roam on his land. By the time they reached 3 years old, they were considered fully grown. Their playfighting began to resemble the behavior of adult lions. Despite the increasing danger, Wes remained as devoted to them as ever. His guests affectionately dubbed him Uncle West, recognizing his caring, fatherly approach to the lionesses. He would often wrap his arms around their enormous heads, giving them tight hugs, even though their playfights were becoming too rough for him to safely join in. As West entered his late 60s, he had to be more cautious. The lionesses were only getting stronger and bolder, and he was no longer as physically capable as he once was. By August 2020, the lionesses were 5 years old and West was 69 years old. As a part of his daily routine, West called for Demi and Tanner during his walk through his land, and the two lionesses came trotting over. His wife Gil followed behind in their car. The sun was shining, and a gentle breeze moved through the thick, scruffy brush. The sounds of the African bush were all around them as they walked in silence, just as they did every day. For Gil, it was an incredible sight to see her husband walking through the bush, flanked by two enormous white lionesses. But then, something went terribly wrong. During the walk, the two lionesses began to play fight, something they did regularly. They were always testing each other's strength and fighting skills. While this was normal behavior, they were becoming more aggressive with each other. West stood still as the two females grappled with one another, listening to their deep growling as they pinned each other to the ground and gnawed on each other's fur. He could tell they weren't holding back as much as they usually did. This was definitely a play fight West didn't want to get involved in, but unfortunately, the 69-year-old soon found himself with no choice. Like two overly excited kids who didn't know when to stop, Demi and Tanner were getting more and more unruly. Suddenly, one of them jumped off the other and charged straight at West. She knocked him down instantly, the force of her attack leaving him breathless as he hit the ground hard. There was no time for him to react. It all happened so fast. Dust flew up as the lioness began mauling him. West tried to shout at her to stop, but she kept biting him. Gil could see her husband was in serious danger, although she had watched him play and wrestle with the lions many times before. This time was different. It was much more intense and violent. She honked the horn and yelled out of the window, then drove the car forward to scare the lions off. Thankfully, the lioness snapped out of her aggressive state and jumped off West. Gil rushed to her husband's side. He was bleeding heavily, and she tried to stop the bleeding from his neck as the ground around them turned red. Gil quickly called for emergency help. Paramedics arrived soon after, but it was too late. West had died in Gil's arms. The attack happened so fast that there was nothing Gil could have done to prevent it. Just one powerful bite to his neck had severed an artery, and there was no saving him. In that instant, Uncle West was gone. The two lionesses he had lovingly raised from just a week old had turned on him, bringing his story to a tragic end. A father to 4 sons and grandfather to 6 children, the family was determined that the lions would not be hurt, even as they struggled to come to terms with the tragic loss of their loved one. That would have been Wes's preference. Terry Mathewson, his daughter-in-law, felt the lionesses were just having fun and unaware of their power. They had been raised by a man since they were cubs, and one of them had unintentionally killed him. Though it was likely not a deliberate attack, it ended in tragedy. Demi and Tanner were sedated and taken off the property. After grieving for West, it was difficult for the family to see the lions leave, as it had been such an important part of his life over the past 5 years. Their departure felt like losing him all over again. The lions were moved to an endangered species center, and the family was assured that they would be placed in the best possible environment. Thank you for watching. If you want to know more shocking animal attacks, simply click on the next video. Don't miss out. Hit the subscribe button for more terrifying stories. Until next time, stay safe